Nottingham Forest transfer window so far has been rather frustrating, to say the least, with a lot of players that we're going after just not coming through. We've had lots of bids be rejected, and then teams beating us to players. Then on top of this, we've lost a number of players already that did play a lot of football last season, namely Anthony Elanga, then also the likes of Danilo, Ramon Sosa and Harry Toffolo. These are all players and gaps in the side that we're going to have to replace. And with the season less than a month away, we're still yet to see any of those be replaced. The only signings we've seen so far, of course, are Igor Jesus and Yar Cunha. Both look very exciting and really encouraging signings, and we clearly want more, and I'm excited about them too, and they both look like real players. I mean, of course they're real, but by real I mean, they should be pretty good. There's been a growing frustration about the lack of signings besides them two, and whether we sign 20 players in a window or 2 by the end of July, it doesn't really feel like we can please anybody right now. But regardless, we do need to sign some players sooner rather than later. You look at the squad, there's some big gaps to fill, as I would have already said. There's only really centre-back that's absolutely stacked. Arguably you need to get rid of somebody there, probably David Carmo. For fullback, only 2 senior fullbacks right now. If you count Omar Richards, it's 3. But I mean, how serious can we count Omar Richards? Is he going to stay around and be a depth player? Wouldn't be totally surprised, but I could definitely see him moving on. Midfield's looking good besides the Danilo-shaped hole, and if Gibbs White stays, then even better. In the last day, we've also seen Lewis O'Brien officially leave the club to join Wrexham. A fantastic deal for them and for him. It's about time he got a permanent move. And I'm not really going to say that's going to affect us because he was never going to play a part, but it's another player that's left and another player that we haven't then bought in to replace. And then the wings, I mean, I'm literally seeing people reply to Forest announcing battery-powered sponsors, whatever the hell that is, saying can that play on the wing? I mean, when that's happening, you need a winger. Strikers looking pretty encouraging though. We've got 3 first-team strikers for the first time in a long time, so that's good. But are we going to trust Taro Awoniyi? Should we bring in another striker as well? This is all to be decided. But it's not just the lack of players that have come in, it's also the fact that we seem to be getting beaten to every single signing right now. Johan Wissa, we've been after him for about a year. He looks like he could be going to Newcastle instead of us. Johan Bagayoko, we wanted him from PSV when the Elanga story dropped and he departed the club. Well, he's gone to RB Leipzig. Richard Rios, more of a long-term target as well. He looks like he's going to Roma, or certainly not Forest. James McAtee being another one. The fact that that's been going on most of the transfer window, even going back to the January window as well. We had interest in McAtee, and it just doesn't really seem to be happening, does it? And more recently, we've seen the Dan Undoy story take a turn for the worse, despite the fact that he's apparently agreed terms with Forest and said yes to joining us. It looks like Napoli might be getting in ahead of us. Napoli have Champions League football and of course a fellow Serie A side, so he's probably more keen to go there and more likely to go there. Apparently Bologna now want at least 40+ million for Undoy, so whether Forest want to go that far with bringing him into the club, I'm not too sure. But eventually we're going to need to sign somebody, and I'm not saying we're going to need to go out and panic buy somebody for 40 million, but if we really want one of these players, we're surely going to have to go some to get them. Especially when we're now competing in a European football market, it's going to be harder to get these players to join you because you're competing at a much higher level. But I think the main concern amongst the fans really about the lack of signings is the fact that if we get to the start of the season against Brentford and we still haven't got a main starting right winger, we're going to be a bit concerned if we're starting Jota there, who, as good as he can be, he shouldn't really be starting. We don't really want to be in a situation like we were the first 2 Premier League seasons where we're signing players right to the very end of deadline day and then you've got to try and bed them in once the season's already up and running, and that just makes things even harder. We want to try and ideally have a window like we did last year where, if you look at it really, the 2 key cogs of all those signings that ended up being crucial players to us were Elliot Anderson and Nikola Milenkovic. They were both signed really early in the window. They were both signed at this stage last pre-season. So that wasn't really an issue when we then signed squad players like Sosa and Jota and Morato a bit later in the window because they didn't play loads of football, and ultimately we didn't really go overboard last year either. So not signing too many players and then signing the most crucial players of the lot early on is a key reason why we did so well last season, and I don't think we want to have a season any different to that. So the frustration of getting bids rejected and then other clubs coming in when it's too late, I think just rubs it in really, doesn't it? Especially when you're seeing key players leave. And even really when it comes to players leaving, it's been frustrating because Morgan Gibbs-White is still here. Now that's not a bad thing in terms of him as a player. Ideally we want to keep Gibbs-White as a player every single day of the week. But because of how it's all unfolded, I think some people now just want to see him leave the club because he's broken that trust. If he stays, then suddenly we've got a player who's fantastic, and if he goes about it professionally, like he has done so far, it's like, you know, it's going to be a little bit awkward among some fans. I don't think we can quite look at him in the same way. If he stayed as a player, I'd be delighted, but it's going to be a bit potentially toxic. But it's not even really that, to be honest. It's just the fact that that happened 2 weeks ago, and here we are, he's still here, and there's no sign of that deal going through at all. I mean, you know, people were saying, well, he's not gone to the Portugal camp, that he must be leaving then. Well, that's because it was a private family matter, of course. So, you know, people were just trying to make headlines there. He's now gone to Portugal to join the squad. He's obviously played against Monaco. So he's going about his business correctly, and that's great. But it's just things aren't quite happening so far, and I think that's the frustration. The only new deal that we've seen in the last few days, and of course I only did a transfer video a few days ago, is Christopher Nkunku from Chelsea. This would be one hell of a statement, and I've also seen the likes of Jadon Sancho and Garnacho from Man United be linked with us, which I could have mentioned in my earlier video this week, but I just felt they're not that serious, surely. I mean, they're just crazy rumours that, partly because of their wages being that high, and then surely the transfer fee is going to be pretty high too. These players coming from so-called Big Six sides, Christopher Nkunku would be one of them, and he's one of the many Chelsea players who I actually think does pretty well from the outside looking in, but just gets cast away because it's Chelsea and they've got about 50 players. He actually scored quite a lot of goals for them last season. He only scored 3 in the Premier League, but overall he scored 15 goals, which is genuinely a very good return. You've got the likes of Newcastle and Bayern Munich showing interest in Christopher Nkunku, so, you know, a good chance that we're going to miss out on him as well. I don't think that's a really big rumour so far. It's only early days, and again, those wages are probably quite a big stumbling block. But again, I just have a feeling it's going to be another story that you think, oh yeah, I like the look of that, and then you just don't really hear from it. So really, to sum things up, I think it's frustrating right now. We want to see players come in. We want to see Forest have a more complete squad, and by the time we get to Brentford, we really want to see at least a couple of key cogs filled, you know, and then you just add a couple more after that, and that would be great. And that's typically how things go. And I think we will. I think we will see, you know, a right winger come in before then, and I think we'll see maybe somebody else, but I think it's going to be probably quite a slow one. We just don't want to be seeing like the Gibbs-White thing go to the wire, because that would be a really bad situation for us to have to then replace him at the last minute. And I'm sure the club are very much aware of that. Frustration so far, but when you look at the deals we have done, really, and Jesus and Cunha, if we make signings like that, based off what we think that there can be for us, we've got to be pretty encouraged that we can make some more similar. So this is kind of a part 2 transfer roundup, but more looking at the fact that things have been quite indifferent so far and frustrating, and it's something I've seen spoken about a lot in the fan base in the last several weeks, about the fact that we're just taking our time with things. And I don't think we need to worry too much, but we just want to get a move on, really, don't we, at the same time. So please everyone, let me know your thoughts in the comments on what I've just been talking about in this video, the lack of signings, the lack of movement, but ultimately how you think it's going to pan out. Let me know in the comments everyone, and thanks for watching. Like, subscribe to Rads, and up the Reds.